It's Nature Wins podcast, a climate adaptation journey. I'm your host, Maureen Aylward. This is Cape Ann's climate story, a storied place. Gloucester, Rockport, Essex, and Manchester by the Sea. Coastal communities of people who know their way around a storm, but were vulnerable to climate threats and working on coastal resilience. It's Nature Wins podcast, and I'm your host, Maureen Aylward. On this episode, I'm speaking with Ann Peterson, the Director of Research Programs for Gloucester Marine Genomics Institute, aka GMGI, as we know this locally.
GMGI, that's right.
GMGI. I'm so excited to have you on the podcast. I'm just going to read a little bit of a bio here. Ann is a marine biologist with more than 20 years of experience. She previously served as Fisheries Ecology Branch Chief at NOAA's Northeast Fisheries Science Center. She led research on the impacts of environmental change on marine species and ecosystems. Welcome to the podcast, Ann.
Thank you so much, Maureen. It's great to be here, and I'm so excited. You have a great podcast talking about nature and climate here on Cape Ann, so I'm just thrilled to be here. Thank you.
And that's what we're going to get into.
Oh, yes, we will.
We better just jump right in. But before we do that, I would like for you to talk about your background. How did you come to this topic? How did you get involved? And also, how did you get to Gloucester?
Yeah, well, that's a big question, but I'll keep it brief because really the exciting part's what we're doing at GMGI right now. But in terms of my background, so as you said, I was trained as a marine biologist. I got my PhD more in physiology, kind of interested in how animals function in extreme environments. How do they fuel exercise? How do fish work when they're swimming fast versus slow? And then also really interested in the endocrine system, and eventually I came to really focusing on how pollution, mostly anthropogenic pollution, things from humans putting in the water, and I consider carbon dioxide and temperature pollutants that affect animals that live in the water because that affects their habitat. So I got really interested in how they survive, thrive, reproduce in those kind of circumstances, and how they survive in polluted environments and what we can do about it. So that kind of brought me to NOAA. I did work, actually, most of my career was actually more in academia in the Oregon state system. And I worked, and this will become relevant to the GMGI post pretty quickly here, but I worked for several years in kind of more of a biomedical lab using zebrafish as an organism for models for human diseases based on exposure to certain contaminants, namely perchlorate, which is something in the drinking water that affects your thyroid. And so we were using fish as a model to understand how genetics, the DNA of the fish, may play a role in how they respond to this contaminant, hoping to understand how humans and human genetics can have a role in how humans respond to exposure to pollutants like that. And that got me really just interested in, biomedicine, molecular science, really the genetic underpinnings of how we all kind of move through and survive this world. And after that, I stayed in the Oregon state system and worked more with wild fish, trying to get back to this question of the oceans are vast. How are animals doing out there? How are fish doing? And so that kind of gave me this background of both looking at how, humans are affected by the same contaminants in the environment as fish, kind of how do we look at this holistically as, how is our environment affecting all of us? Mm-hmm. So that brought me to NOAA. I moved back to the East Coast from Oregon. I'm originally from DC and worked for NOAA for about 5 years. And actually, you mentioned my latest position was branch chief, but I did all sorts. I was a contractor. I worked with salmon conservation out in Washington State. I did a lot of different things with NOAA. But in the end, I was Fisheries Ecology Branch Chief, and that was great. Had a great staff and loved those folks. Was admittedly caught up with the turmoil of the Doge era, was fired, rehired, a lot of unstableness, a lot of turmoil there at NOAA, unfortunately, during February of 2024. yeah, February 2024. It's been a while. And ended up making the leap to come up to the Genomics Institute because they were doing such innovative and cool things, and I could still work with some of my NOAA colleagues, and it just seemed like the right time to go back to the innovation side while still collaborating with the folks doing the wonderful work that the Northeast Fisheries Science Center does, but just from the other side of the aisle. And so I jumped on to GMGI because they were already moving in the direction that we're going to talk about today. Some of these really innovative projects that are going to impact marine science in the Gulf of Maine, and really, I think, around the world eventually. But they were just some really exciting people working there. Great board, great group of scientists. So I was really excited to have the opportunity to do something a little different. I'd never worked in the nonprofit space, much less a really cutting edge genomics space. And so, yeah.
Such a great story.
Yeah, well, it's a winding one. And I will just say the reason why I said when I worked with zebrafish that brings me back to GMGI is that I'm sure you'll have this question in a moment. You know, what is GMGI for the folks that don't know? But in terms of our research arm of the Institute, there are two main divisions. And one is biomedical in nature. What can the ocean teach us about ourselves? Through understanding the genetics of long-lived organisms in the ocean, how do some clams and long-lived species like sea urchins survive hundreds of years without cancer, things like that. So we do have a biomedical division, and then also the other division is about ocean health and being good stewards and ocean conservation of the life there and understanding what life is there. So really I was like, wow, this puts together kind of all the parts of my career in one place.
That's
So,
amazing.
Thank you.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's such a rare and wonderful experience when, you go through that period of unknown and you come out in a much better place.
A different place, it's hard to say,
It's hard to say what's better.
Yeah. But I would say it was a lot of adversity, and there were 1,000 of us. Not to make this, political or go too far down any rabbit holes, but on one day in February, 1,000 people that had recently been promoted or for whatever reason were new to NOAA fisheries were fired in a single day from someone they'd never heard of. And it was really traumatic. So
yeah, that must have been traumatic.
yeah, but several of us actually have come up and are now working at institutes in the Northeast, including GMGI. So there is a silver lining. Yeah.
So GMGI is a decade old?
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit more. And yeah, before we get too much into the conversation, just wanted to mention our late state representative, Ann Margaret Ferrante, who was so beloved here and had done so much and made such an impact on our community and the Cape Ann community. And she was very involved with GMGI.
From the beginning, she was involved. And I had the real luck of getting to work with her for my first year here. And she had enthusiasm and vision like nobody else. And for GMGI, she loved us on the waterfront. She loved that we were bringing jobs and workforce development and a new way of fishing. In a way, when we go out and test the water and find the genes of all the fish, we're still fishing, just in a different way. And she was a force of nature, and I miss getting to work with her all the time. And she was there in 2013. This vision came about. The Rosa family, Ann Margaret, others in Gloucester, Greg Verdine, David Walt, Michelle May, a lot of Harvard, I call them luminaries, these folks that are just doing incredible research down there, really saw the promise of bringing biotechnology to the North Shore. And that promise and that vision is still there today. And I'll talk about it when I talk about our grants recently with Mass CEC. The state, private funders, people are really seeing now, Hui, Woods Hole, and MBL, these giant 150-year-old institutes. All right, they're pretty good, right? But they're all down on the South Shore, and the North Shore has a lot of biotech and a lot of other promising kind of blue tech entrepreneurs rising up, moving out of Cambridge. So we want to be the hub on the North Shore. And so they really wanted to form that. Their original vision, besides just having a really, top-tier research institute, was to have a workforce development arm. And I have to mention the academy,
Of course.
because the Gloucester Biotech Academy is such a success. It is such a wonderful idea, and I've only worked for GMGI for about a year and a half now, but when I go to the graduations, I've been to a few now, they pass around tissues because everybody's crying because it's such a beautiful journey that these kids, and sometimes adults, I say kids, like 18-year-olds, 20-year-olds, but even later in their career, people come back and do this training program, and they get 400 hours of hands-on experience. They end up going to internships and teaching the master students how to do stuff.
It's an incredible opportunity. There's a lot of love for the Biotech Academy. I actually know some people who went through it.
Yeah,
and have been very successful.
Yeah, and so we have the interns often come work for us at the research arm, and so that's really the landscape of GMGI. There's the academy, there's the research arm, and the research arm has those two divisions. But it's all about, it's 2013, so we're 13 years old.
Oh, 13. Yeah. Great. GMGI is helping Gloucester become a leader in understanding and protecting the changing oceans. I mean, we certainly know that our oceans are getting warmer. The Gulf of Maine is warming faster than any other body of water in the world. There's changes in species that our fishermen are seeing out there. There's bound to be more, of course, happening because of climate change, temperature change, pollution, as you were mentioning. How is GMGI now looking forward and using the current state of the oceans to learn more about how to protect them?
Yeah, well, the way you phrase that is just exactly right, that we have to have the knowledge of what's there in the ocean, meaning life. What are the oceanographic conditions that go along with how life is changing in the oceans and the Gulf of Maine, and understand how the health of the animals that are using our waters, how that is going as well. And so genomics really can get at all of those angles. Folks that work for us do population genetics, which means they can tell how big a population of cod is, what are the boundaries of their distribution, data that are really important for managers. We are not managers. We are agnostic data collectors that just want to know what's happening in the ocean. And we also have epigenetics programs that will help you understand how old a fish or a squid may be, and those demographic data are really crucial for stock assessment and for also knowing, how in the future the fishermen, may or may not be catching certain species in certain places, things like that. Definitely attuned to temperature changes that go along with climate change. Many of your listeners probably are familiar with a program called eMolt that NOAA is doing. They're actually putting bottom temperature sensing equipment on commercial fishing boats. So one commercial fisherman we work with, Tom Hill, has the eMolt system on his boat, and they're starting to measure bottom temperature, and they're realizing that due to just all of the global scale climate change, actually parts of the Gulf of Maine on the bottom are getting colder. So cold that certain fish or squid that are supposed to arrive at certain times of year are not doing that. And many people think it's from a cold water intrusion from the Labrador Sea, and that probably has to do, actually I'm getting out of my lane here, but climate change is driving it all, and it could be a lot of melting and changing in the Arctic that's driving that. So things are getting colder, things are getting warmer. Where are the cod going to go? These are questions that that
everybody wants to know.
Everybody wants to know.
Where's the cod going, and where are the lobsters heading, and that sort of thing. And what are the new species coming up here?
Right.
That are, challenging. Green crabs for one, but also
even blue crabs.
Blue crabs.
We may even get blue crabs further north. That's a mid-Atlantic species. And all sorts of boundaries are changing. And so having really good genetic data is a great way to do that. And also, I don't know if we'll get into this in further questions, but something that really appeals to me about all the types of genetic work that we do, particularly environmental DNA. So environmental DNA is something that is it's not a brand new technology, but I'd say it's really exploded in the last 10 years, last 5 years as just a disruptive, let's talk, in tech world talk, a disruptive technology that I foresee someday be replacing trawling. So just by taking a scoop of water, all living things shed skin, they shed DNA. Everyone's familiar with the old, detective series where they can figure out who was in a room by getting their Coca-Cola can and swabbing it for DNA.
Yeah.
Well, just like that in the ocean, animals swimming around, even microbes, have DNA, are shedding DNA, and we can measure that in a cup of water and tell you all the species that are there.
Yeah.
And
So how does that work? So could you get, give us more of a picture of eDNA, how you get it, and what are you seeing, and how does that translate into all of this information, this data that you're collecting?
Yeah, so I'll use an example from an ongoing project that is so important to the Gulf of Maine that one of our scientists, Matt Harkey, is doing out at Stellwagen Bank. So Stellwagen Bank's a national marine sanctuary. Most people know it because that's where the whale watches go, because that's where all the whales go, because it is such a wonderful foraging ground. So the food webs there are very robust. There's a lot to eat for all the fish and plankton and all the things that you want in a healthy marine system. So that's why the whales go there. So Matt's group has been going out and sampling water. I've been out a few times with them and their seasonal sampling. And I always laugh because when I worked for NOAA, we would literally some days go out and trawl all day and get nothing because we were working in very, impacted environments like the Passaic River, for instance. And so you'd go out and you wouldn't catch a fish, or you wouldn't catch the fish you wanted. But so far, going out to collect water, we've never been skunked. Every time we get water, it's 100%.
Every time you get water.
Yeah, but it's kind of, you come back with our cooler after a day of fishing, and it's a cooler of water. I'm like, but I smell better at the end of the day. I think anyway. So we go out in Stellwagen. We work with a local fisherman, Tom Hill. He takes us out in his lobster boat. They take sediment samples. They take bottom, sometimes 500 feet down, like really deep areas, and then surface water. Just literally, like on the top, you just use a bucket. On the bottom, it's a slightly more sophisticated contraption that basically is triggered to open when it's down at the bottom, and then it shuts. So the water, you're capturing the water at the bottom, and then you bring it up, and they run it through filters right there on the boat. It's basically just a suction pump with a filter on the bottom, and it runs the water through. Now that filter contains all of the DNA from everything and this is a really big, being very, not specific, that people say a mile radius for 24 hours, right? And that's not always true. It depends on ocean currents. It depends on the species. Turtles don't shed very much, for instance, but some fish shed a lot. So it's a generalization.
So you're capturing this.
You're capturing this on a filter.
You're capturing all this DNA from all the species that are traveling through that area.
Yep.
That's fascinating.
Or they might not even have traveled through. They might have gone a mile away, but they shed their skin.
Wow.
And so we can tell. And so then they bring the filter back, they extract the DNA, and then send it through a sequencer. And based on all the, in science you always say you're standing on the shoulders of giants. Based on all the hard work from all the people for 50 years that have taken a clam, taken a little chunk of clam, and done the hard work to figure out its genetic code. And now all of that is in a free repository online, right? So because we know the genetic code of so many animals, we're able to figure out what that sequence came from.
That's incredible.
It's incredible.
Yeah, and it's so fascinating. And so this environmental DNA you're using to really create this new initiative. Could you talk about that?
Yeah,
For a bit?
absolutely. Yeah. So because eDNA has really taken off and the accuracy of it, and like I said, because so many people have now uploaded so many sequences from so many species, from microbes to whales, we're able in a single scoop of water to tell you all the life there, microbe to whale, everything in between. Um, there's really the ability to create an atlas, right? An atlas of life. And in the past, you'd have to go out still for federal and state, most of those surveys, 3 times a year, they take a boat out and they trawl in one line, which is the best they can do. And it's wonderful what they do. But now you can just go out and grab a scoop of water. You could do it every hour, every day, all year long, and really figure out exactly at such a finer scale, temporospatial scale, where the fish and where the microbes and where things are. So because of that, I would really, although he wouldn't want the credit, our CSO, our Chief Science Officer, Rick Horowitz, really kind of looked at this, and he came from a background at the Allen Institute, where their whole mission was mapping all the parts of the cell and the brain, to do these really high scale and use AI and make it this map, right, that had never been used before, never been made before at such a scale that people could then interrogate to learn about diseases and how things work. So he kind of looked at this and said, if we have this huge atlas at this scale, can we then figure out like what conditions are making everything change? Can we make a predictive model? And kind of, people have talked through it. The scientists are excited about it. And really now we're making a Google Maps for the ocean. And this Google Maps for the ocean will allow artificial intelligence and expert modelers and everybody to have a data set so fine and so large that we can start really seeing patterns that we're never able to see before, because when you're only surveying 3 or 4 times a year, it's impossible, right?
What's the magnitude of impact here of something like that? Because that we're all used to the Google Maps. We're using it all the time, but for something that's starting here in Gloucester through GMGI, that sounds just huge to be able to map the ocean. I mean, it's a little bit of a, how do I wrap my head around that? And what happens here in Gloucester?
Yeah. Well, the answer you get is, for me, is very much because of my background more in stewardship and conservation. And what I see is the opportunity to give a health checkup to any food chain you want to, very frequently before it gets sick. Right? If you don't know what's there and you don't know how it functions, you don't know what needs protection, right? Mm-hmm. What are the early warning signs that something is about to collapse? Are there not enough plankton? Are the whales going to go away? So I think it creates a tool that will help managers really predict how well certain food chains are doing. The other part, if you talk to one of my colleagues who's really into like natural product discovery, they'll say something like this is going to show us where there's blooms of unique microbes. And we know that a lot of marine microbes generate products that have been, everybody loves Ozempic, everybody loves these things. These are products that came from animal, in that case, venom, but microbes are leading us to all sorts of potential cancer treatments, things like that. So I think one of the exciting aspects isn't just seeing all the things that we have a sequence identified. So I'm kind of not being clear here, but like if you pull up a cup of water and we see that there's 95% of microbes we know about, what about the 5% that we pulled up that have no known match? That's what we need to figure out what's there. So if we need to protect it, we can, or if we can use it for human health or human benefit, now we have that knowledge that they're there. So there's benefits to human health. There's benefits to, seafood security. There's benefits to marine mammals. And I feel like I'm a small thinker. I'll say that on camera.
I don't know about that, Ann.
I'm a small thinker. I think
know.
once these tools are available, the really big thinkers are going to step into the room and see even greater potential. Just like I always think of my uncle. Maybe I shouldn't. Anyway, he would say when Google Maps first came out, I don't need this. I got a map. Look at my map. I can read my map, and he would be so.
And different generations, right?
Yeah. But then he saw, okay, Google Maps can do all this stuff. And, it tells me where a gas station is and that, blah, blah. So I think the adoption of technology like this, when we have really fine scale eDNA sampling, both in time and space, and then we have, artificial intelligence picking up patterns. I think at first people might be like, we have the trawls. We already do this. Why is this new? Why do I want to know that? And then the big thinkers are going to see a lot of it. But to me, Its value is in conservation, stewardship, natural product discovery, and then also what we call bocce studies, before, after, control, impact. So every time we're going to put in windmills, which, clean energy, we need to think outside the box. Out west, they're doing wave generated new clean energy. People are doing marine construction. There's going to be deep sea mineral extraction. All these things are coming. Having a tool that can really quickly tell you if your operation is impacting biodiversity could be a really great mechanism to, in real time, start, stop, modify projects before they really impact, rather than doing it 5 years later when it's too late.
Yeah, it seems like this kind of technology, it's really like a journey, and also, this is frontier work, and very pioneering to help us to see what we can't see right now, which is, the ocean is so fascinating and so magical. And there's so much there that we don't know because often we're humans. We live on land,
Totally. And that's why that is such a great lead-in. I want to do a plug for one of the projects that we're doing with the eDNA work and with a harborside demonstration station, is that we are going to put in a sign, some sort of visual display on Main Street, right where our building is, that will show people driving by, what's the temperature, what's the salinity, and then also visualizations of all of the fish and clams and seals and animals that we've detected in the harbor in the last few days. So it'll be kind of a way to remind us when we're having our whole day doing errands away from the ocean that, hey, Gloucester is a fishing town, Gloucester is a beach town. Look what's in the water right now and what's going on. And I'm so excited about that.
So you were saying some kind of a ticker tape along Roger Street?
A ticker tape, exactly. Like, we're not New York, we're not Times Square. We don't want the stock exchange. We want to know the fish exchange. Maybe we'll call it the fish exchange.
So, you're going to see along the GMGI building that everybody knows now, and you're going to be able to see things going by. Well, like what? Like, what would it say? Cod are doing something, or what's another species that would be in the inner harbor?
Well, in the inner harbor, there's going to be a lot of influence from what people are fishing for. So the inner harbor is going to be a little bit of a human influenced, readout, because if all the boats are coming in and they were doing haddock or pollock, it's going to say haddock, pollock. But we get seals right in there, so I can tell you when a seal is there. We're also doing detection on the outside of the harbor, and that will be more seasonal and maybe have a lot of different species. But I think the exciting part is just knowing that we can, in real time or very short time scale, know what was there, and we didn't have to drag a net and kill a bunch of stuff,
So you mentioned the Harbor Demonstration Project, and I think before we get into that, I'm going to take a break.
Okay.
And we're going to take a short break, but we'll be right back. We're going to hear from our sponsor, Common Crow Natural Market. We'll be back in just a minute. Thank you. Common Crow Natural Market, Cape Ann's one-stop shop for natural and organic food, scratch-made grab-and-go treats and meals, natural and organic wellness and beauty items, and fair trade gifts and housewares. Kind service and knowledgeable staff will help you make the best choices for you. Our passion feeds you. Hi, I'm your host, Maureen Aylward. This is Nature Winds podcast, and we're back with Ann Peterson from GMGI. We're going to talk a little bit more about the Harbor Demonstration Project in Gloucester, and what is that? And pull it all together for us, and some of the work that you're doing with that eDNA sampling.
Yeah, thanks. So I'd actually back us up a little bit. Before the break, we were just talking about the technology and what is eDNA and what's its impact and what can it tell us. But the reason why we are, really expanding our capabilities there are, one, because it's an amazing technology, but also, as I said at the very beginning, we feel like GMGI has the potential to become this hub on the North Shore, not just for the eDNA technology, but for other blue tech technologies that are being developed right now as part of the blue economy. We want to keep and participate in the Gloucester Harbor as a working waterfront. We have a seawater system that actually pumps seawater from the harbor into our wet room, where we can do experiments and actually use the real harbor water. So we're dependent on the harbor. We're part of it, and we're really excited to kind of be a force of new ways of studying and working with fish right there. And somebody who agrees with that vision happens to be the state, and particularly Mass Clean Energy Center, Mass CEC. It has been a wonderful sponsor for us, and their goals around the state are to create hubs for not just the recipient of grant funding, as we were, but for other small entrepreneurial startups to come and be able to test their blue tech, their climate tech, at a node, rather than funding 50 different research centers. Like, let's make one center and then give them the funds to have assets that other people can use. We recently received, in the last year, we've received $3.4 million from the state.
Incredible.
It's incredible.
Wow.
We've doubled our space inside that building that everybody knows with the cod. We're now on the second floor as well, and our goal is to do several different big projects that support that idea of promoting new blue tech, using biotechnology to be better stewards and to better discover the ocean and what it can provide, and also to help other startups have a place that is water adjacent to test their equipment, because that's really rare. Like, even one of our biggest partners, MITRE, so they're $1 billion+ huge behemoth. They are a nonprofit, but they do a lot of technology development in the defense sector and also other blue tech spaces. But they're in Bedford. Like, they don't have, so my point is just that we can provide waterfront space for so many different companies. And so with this recent grant, we're expanding our eDNA capabilities, because it can be used to test, like I said, before and after effects on offshore wind or other clean energy projects. The state wants to fund that so that they can, really best monitor the impacts of the state's activities in our precious ocean. And also so that we can get this commercial platform going, so we can hire more people, really expand our footprint, and be kind of a economic boon to the area is the big dream. And also to help communicate our science and the companies, all the tech that's happening, communicate that to the general public. So to that end, one of the 4 or 5 aspects of this big grant that we got, the 2 big grants that we got in the last year, is to create what we call a harbor demonstration station. And this will be almost a prototype of the virtual living ocean that I mentioned before. And so what I mean by that is that we're working with some really smart people doing really innovative things at the Atlantic Resiliency Innovation Institute down in Marshfield, and then also MITRE Incorporated, as I talked about earlier. And we're putting sensors in the water at a couple places in the harbor, mostly like just right by our building so that we don't interrupt any commercial traffic, because that would be very bad for Gloucester Inner Harbor, but just out of the way, some sensors to do basic oceanographic data, as well as like chlorophyll and other things that measure how much plankton, but then pairing it with the eDNA. And this is what's kind of innovative, is that other big oceanographic institutes, we have so many.
Just say who he is.
Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute. Yeah. Just to name one. People have a lot of ocean observing equipment out there right now. Temperature, you can find a widget to find water temperature anywhere, right? It's out there. But as of yet, because eDNA is so new, nobody is really integrating those signals together to show the biological life at the same time as the chemical and physical changes. And that's what we really care about, right? Like, when storms happen, when there's changes in currents, how does that affect marine life? Or if you're just a fisherman and you want to know, hey, if it rained this much, like, where are the fish going to be? It can serve information for a lot of different stakeholders. So we're putting these instruments in the water. We have a permit for a buoy out by what they call Dog Bar. Yeah, so we'll have something out of the way over there, and then something closer to our institute. And then the feed from that, we'll have a GoPro underwater, so it'll have a live camera feed of what's swimming by.
Cool.
Yeah.
People can, sign into the website where you have it on the website, and you'll be.
Yeah, exactly. And so we're not quite sure how the viz. That's what the people.
What's the cam going to be called?
So I'm gonna get killed for today if I say that, because I haven't. No, I won't get killed because it's never gonna go. What I want to call it iBoop, because it's the it's the integrated biological ocean observing platform.
Why not? I mean, it's a great name.
Well,
it's catchy and memorable.
Yeah, it kind of sounds like poop though. So I don't know. I think iBoop would be great, and then like the actual instrument, you'd be like, hey, put the boop. Let's deploy the boop, but. I don't have buy-in.
All right, so something is going to happen.
Something's going out there.
Something's going to happen, and there's going to be some naming of this.
Yeah, well, there'll be some naming, and then those data will come off. And like I said, we're going to try to have monitors in all of our buildings. Also on our website, ability to click in and see, lists of species that have been detected, oceanographic conditions. Because we're working with ARII, the Resiliency Institute, they are very interested in coastal hazard management. And so also we hope to have data on rain, like a rain gauge, storm surge levels, current changes, wave height, things that people are more interested in, safety and impact of storms that are increasing with climate change could also. So there'll be a little bit of data for everybody.
Well, I can instantly see how Town Green would be interested in that because of our emergency preparedness focus, and also it's almost like an early warning system, or could be something like that. I mean, police and fire, the emergency management folks in Gloucester, it seems to have just an instant, there's a lot of uses for that.
Data, yeah, exactly. And then the funnest part of this, I think, will be the signage out on Main Street near our building, where people driving by, whether they be tourists or locals, can see some of our data about, what life is there, what's swimming by, and what the ocean conditions are like at that moment.
And so, being land dwellers, we're driving down Rogers Street, we're, getting to where we need to go downtown. And we can see the harbor, but we don't necessarily know what's in the harbor unless you're standing next to it, or if you're on Schooner Adventure, for instance, or you're out there, or you're in a fishing boat, or you're in a recreational boat. You can see the seals, but for other people who are just walking by, even, this seems to be such a great, wonderful way to bring the ocean to the people.
Yeah,
and more than it just being the beach, which we all love, and it's the middle of summer right now, so we have wonderful interaction with the ocean right now. It just seems like this purposeful way of connecting us.
That's the intention completely. And I do want to pause and just say, this is a vision. It's not going to come to fruition in the scale that I'm talking about, where we have real-time eDNA data and everything's integrated and you get a beautiful Pixar quality picture. That kind of thing is the future. But for now, it'll be basic, but it'll be data recorded, integrated, and displayed in a way that's never been done before in the next few years. So
So you just got these big grants, one from Mass Clean Energy Center and another one. And can you say who
they're both from CEC.
Oh, they're both from CEC.
Yeah,
Great.
one is the Ocean Innovation Network that connects us to other hubs that are expanding their capabilities, and then the second is through the Testing and Demonstration Asset Program, and that's really what they're seeing us as, an asset. Like every piece of equipment we buy is going to go online. And it will be a registry that other scientists in the state say, oh, I really want to test this. Can we come work with you? And of course, our founder's vision was, we say yes. Can we make new inventions? Can we work together in a collaborative space? And that's what we're really going for. Yeah.
So what's the timeline? You've got these grants that have just come in.
July 1 was executed. It's July 11th today. No,
14th.
14th.
I'm still living on July 11th, too.
I thought it was the 11th.
I think the 11th was Saturday.
Yeah.
Was it? Yes. So you've got these new grants coming in. You're right at the beginning of the process. You've done a lot of thinking, and you've got some things moving. So in order for this, the Visual Living Ocean project or the Harbor Demonstration project, give us a timeline. Help us to understand what that future looks like in the near
Yeah.
future, or the short term, maybe some longer term visions.
Yeah, absolutely. So, in terms of the harbor demo station, our partners at ARII and MITRE are ready to go. So, really, we're executing that grant. Things are getting signed this month. And you may see people in boats going out and putting, there's these little buoys called SOFAR buoys. They really stay out of the way of everything. They're not a navigation hazard or anything, but they'll be put at a specific place. We'll start collecting data this summer for that part of the project. For our eDNA commercial platform, which, by the way, is being, launched, has been launched because of the incredible demand for eDNA from all sectors of government, industry, academia. We're really the leaders here in marine, right? Lots of people are doing environmental DNA on land and other things. You hear about it in the Everglades, like to detect invasive snakes, right? They use it a lot. But in the open marine space, we're really leaders. So people are sending us their samples. We're setting up a platform to have a service to do this for people from around the world. So that's really exciting. That involves construction inside our building to make a contaminant-free suite to be absolutely the most, and buying lots of robots because the robots make it more efficient and perfect. And so that construction is starting. I think, as you and your listeners can probably imagine, if something is so sensitive it can detect a microbe from a mile away, you have to have a really contaminant-free environment or else you start detecting, things from, anyway, you have to have a really great suite. So we're putting that together. That'll be done in the next year. And then we'll really be able to handle a large volume of customers and hopefully be hiring more and more technicians to drive it, new scientists to expand it. And so that part's over the next year. We also hope to put in a new convening room, and I think maybe the people of Gloucester would be excited about this. Part of the requirements of this grant is that we don't keep this all to ourselves.
Well, I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah. So we will have hopefully a 50-person convening space within 3 years. That's going to take a little time.
Yeah.
But once we have that, we will start doing demonstrations. So that's where our partners that are coming in and inventing new things. People are doing all sorts of wonderful things, like creating Roombas for cleaning the side of boats, or creating a new sensor to detect something that was never detectable before. Those people can come and talk about their projects, their goals, and even demonstrate how things work.
And that would be open to the public?
That would be open to the public, absolutely.
Fascinating. Great.
Yeah, and we hope to do more science talks in our own space. We're reviving the Science Hour, which is something that went on before I was joined during COVID.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, we're reviving that. So we really hope that with our new spaces, we're able to welcome the public and other scientists and companies in more frequently.
That's an exciting
hub.
possibility.
Yeah, just think hub. We want to be that, and a service. Give talks, and so we're not just taking up real estate. We're serving the community, which
I think most of us know that something's going on over there at the GMGI building, but it's nice to be able to, hear you talk about all these innovative changes, these initiatives, and I mean, there are tours that are sometimes available, right?
Yeah, we do an open house, I think, about once a year. There's a lot of models for that, and there's a lot of marine biology in Gloucester, right? NOAA has a 250-person office here, and there's Maritime Gloucester, there's UMass Amherst, and many of us in the administrative roles have talked to each other like, hey, what if we could do an Ocean Fun Day? All get together. It's just hard. People, are really busy, but we're thinking on those lines. Could we have a marine science day where families could go from
Place to place.
Place to place.
Sounds like a wonderful opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've got Ocean Alliance.
Ocean Alliance, of course.
Can't forget them.
Yeah, can't forget them.
Can't forget them.
The
doing all
Snotbot.
that.
No one forgets the Snotbot.
I know, the Snotbot is famous.
Yeah.
I mean, that makes perfect sense. It sounds like a wonderful thing now that you've said it on Nature Winds podcast. It's got to happen.
As soon as we get these projects launched, I will put it back on the top of my list.
Yeah, I mean, anything that gets the community engaged, I think, that's in our space too. We are trying to engage with folks who aren't necessarily engaged. Those folks who speak different languages, that, providing language access around town. That's what we do in our programs for emergency preparedness. That's an essential thing to get those folks out there too. And working with other nonprofits, I think, is a great way to connect and have people learn about what you're doing. And that's why it's so great that you're here on the podcast to help, spread all the good work that you're able to have in front of you, everything that you've done for the last 13 years. And there's more to be done. I think it's just going to be exciting things coming out of GMGI.
And I would be remiss without mentioning our biomedical group run by Andrea Bodner, who many of your listeners will know. She's been with GMGI since the first day, and she has grown it and run it, and her science is fascinating, and she does a great job of getting out in the public. And so I think we need to make sure all of her talks and everybody that is talking publicly, that everybody knows. So communicating that will be important. But
yeah, that's wonderful. So, a couple of things that, on on Town Green's side, for instance, we're interested in the impacts of climate change just right here on Cape Ann.
Yeah.
And, there's so much happening so fast. There's a lot of things, as you mentioned, we kind of don't know exactly what's going on, or there's models that we've learned that have not been as I don't know what's the word, as fine as I guess they could be, and there's some changes there. Maybe they've underestimated temperature, for instance, in the oceans or in the and so how does that all come to serve in the projects that you're working on here in Gloucester and Cape Ann to help us better understand climate solutions for us, or adaptation projects? I mean, is there a way that those of us who are working here could understand or take a benefit from that?
Well, I would say definitely a lot of the ways that the data we collect can be used by people interested in how the oceans are changing. And I think that one wonderful thing about genomics in general is that it is a very democratized data set. Anytime you publish any genomic data, it has to go into a central repository. Same with NOAA. They do a great job of making all of their oceanographic data publicly available. The problem is that nobody knows where to find it. Nobody has the ability to integrate it if you're from the general public. And I think that a real step that we are trying to do is to have demonstrations and outreach, and also combine a lot of these types of data sets to make them accessible as an educational tool for the public. So that is part of this Harbor demo project. Our basic science is directly linked to how fish are moving around based on changes in climate. That is, DMF wants to know that. They've funded a lot of our work. Foundations want to know that. We hope to, get more attention in that realm too, because like you said at the very opening, the Gulf of Maine is, the fastest warming body of water possibly in the world. And it's also the bed of the greatest seafood in my opinion, in the whole world,
Yeah, well, Gloucester fed the world for centuries.
That's right. So I think that it is a matter of national security and seafood security to understand how all of the indisputable environmental change, right? For some reason, environmental change is not political, but climate change is. But everybody who works on the water says, the environment's changing, And so understanding that through how fish are moving, how healthy they are, is key to understanding how those changes are going to affect it. So I think that's one way that we're addressing it, besides just trying to connect the public to what's happening in the water every day. Yeah.
So, in some of this technology, you're using AI, and I just thought I'd bring this up, because AI is a lot in the news. There's, issues around it. People are, protesting against it. But it is a tool that helps you to, compute I mean, you tell us a little bit more about how and why AI is the tool to help you like build this visual living ocean and some of the other things that you're able to use to create this information that then will be used out there
Yeah.
in
Um,
science or in other
yeah.
ways.
And I'm certainly no expert. I know just enough to sound foolish on your show. But I would say that our basic concept and why I don't see that as a dangerous or controversial addition to as a research tool is that these data sets are gigantic. I mean, terabytes, because a single genome has billions of base pairs, and we're going to try to look at genes and fragments of DNA from that many sites at that many times with this many animals. There are great models that have been created by people with other computational tools. Everybody's been using packages that are softwares for a long time. But one advantage I see in the AI realm is that with huge data sets like this, if we do combine oceanographic, physical, chemical, and biological data together, it can pick up patterns that just humans cannot. It can scan through so much data so quickly and agnostically, as they call it, interrogate a data set. And why that's important is because it can do it on such a large data set in a reasonable amount of time. But also, I really believe as we're all trained as oceanographers and biologists, you acquire biases because you know how the world works. You've studied it, the book says this, blah, blah, blah. So you may not ask the question or look at things in a way that a totally agnostic, non-feeling thing might just look at the data set and pick up a pattern we wouldn't have expected. So it's the compute power, as you said, but also I think the agnostic interrogation to give us new hypotheses, help us see things that a human might not see right away.
I was going to say, as a scientist, that must be the dream, right? to find something, find some pattern, and have it be shown to you.
Yeah, well, it depends on the scientist. I think a lot would want to be the one to have seen it.
Oh, right. You
see
forget
it,
that.
Eureka,
That's
the
right.
Eureka moment. But I personally, I would be very happy to have it shown to me. But really, the human will never not be involved. The human has to understand what they're being shown and say that's amazing pattern. Like, how can we then ask the next question to validate and test it?
Yeah.
But
I mean, that's science, though, right? That's exactly what you're doing, and what you're meant to see something and then go further investigate.
Absolutely, and to fail. Failure is a big part of it, finding nothing and then trying again in different ways. So I think that, and that's where our friends and colleagues at MITRE are going to be such great partners because they are, creating digital twins through high-level mathematical models. And
What does that mean?
a digital twin to create a 3D visual representation of a real landscape. So it's a twin, but you can drive through it or look through it to train your robot, for instance, or to train a submarine, how to navigate a canyon, for instance. You have to go out and bathymetrically map it and have all sorts of pictures, and then you can put it in a program where, like a video game, you can go through it. Now, what we want to do is add the fish and the clams and the life and the microbes so that eventually, and this is really the pie in the sky. I'm not going to promise here on this show today we have this in 3 years, but eventually to have a really engaging 3D visual model of the whole Gulf of Maine with maybe 5 years of data of where all the life is that a student could swim through and see what was there and, let's change temperature. How does that change what I should predict to see there? Let's change pH. What do I see there? And that nothing could be as good of a learning tool as that about how oceanography affects biological food chains than getting to play with it yourself.
I hope that comes to pass because that sounds really cool.
It will. It will. It will. It's just not the first step in the chain.
No. Like anything, right? In science, I think people are used to.
But that would be really, truly the Google map of the ocean.
That would be the
experience
Google map.
It.
Yeah, and there would be a virtual reality, is what you're sort of talking about. That experience of being able to swim through it and that learning that would happen. Well, good luck with everything, and I hope that we can have you back, give us another update. And so we started out with learning more about who you are and what you've done and your career. And I just would like to end with something like, is there like an inspiration that you're finding or something that you might want to see in ocean science for you? Just what do you see into your future? What do you hope happens?
What do I hope happens? I'll keep with the kind of the Gloucester theme, because one of the things that's really made me fall in love with GMGI so much is that we have crazy art coming and going all the time, fish art and sea urchin 3D sculptures and wonderful things, and we give presentations with a photographer, with a scientist, and I just think that the institute really captures the essence of Gloucester, which, when I first got here, I had no idea that like Hopper painted here, and that, about Hammond, and learning about, the time when sleep, just the whole 19th century, the
Right.
combination here, and then
Yep.
the fishing history is just so beautiful. And I think that we are really trying to capture that, much to Andrea and the other founders, credit. So what I would like to see for me is to be able to stay on and make these projects kind of continue that vision, and really be able to see a time when kind of the art and the science and the fishing, that people like think of GMGI as a place to go learn about all those things.
That's wonderful. Thanks, Ann.
Thank you so much. This is a really nice conversation.
Yeah, we'll check in with you.
Yeah, give me 18 months.
Okay.
Then we'll see.
We'll check in with you in, a year and a half. Yeah, sure. We'll have you back in a cold December day.
Okay.
Next year. But thank you for taking the time to be with us and sharing all this fascinating, wonderful information. And yeah, we'll think of this. Anybody who's listening, think about this podcast while you're driving by the GMGI building and what's going on inside and what's happening in the Ann Harbor.
And we do welcome people to come in for tours, but if no one's available, please don't be insulted if we say, please contact Olivia and she will get you scheduled a tour. But
yeah, come back another time. I'm sure you're publicizing when those open houses are. But and we'll look forward to whatever that ocean day.
Yeah, and thank you to Town Green for the work you all do. I think we're in lockstep in trying to help the oceans into the future, because they're not doing great.
Yeah, they're not doing well.
Yeah. So we need all the allies we can get.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, thanks for being on Nature Winds podcast. And so that's the end of our show with Ann Petersen from GMGI. We hope that you tune in on YouTube or on Spotify. You can find more information about this episode on both of those channels. And we'll see you again soon. And also, thanks for listening. Take care.